You know what, guys? It's occurred to me over the recent years that I really don't know a whole lot about the classic Metroid series. I mean, I own some of these games, but at the end of the day, that's all I can really say. I own them. But it's not for the lack of trying, mind you. Now, I have played some of the Metroid games in the past. The original, Super Metroid on the Super Nintendo, Metroid Fusion on the Game Boy Advance, and I've even dabbled in some of the Metroid Prime games. Hell, I've actually even seen that Metroid Other M game get bashed to high heaven. Actually, I saw that game being bought by Gene at a flea market, dead serious. I'm not by any means what you would consider a dedicated fan of the series, but I totally understand it. And I was totally with you guys when we all saw Nintendo releasing that Federation Farce video, and I was just sitting there thinking, what the hell are you guys doing? Give them another Metroid game!
Samus and her games were not something I grew up with, sadly. I wish I could say why that was, but really I just kinda missed the boat. You know, I was probably too busy juggling the libraries of both the Sega Genesis and the Super Nintendo, so it was kinda bound to happen that I would miss a few games in between.
In fact, it is for this very reason that I am now collecting games that I wish I had owned back in the day.
Some call me a Johnny-come-lately, but I didn't even know Samus was a woman until I played the Super Smash Bros. Games. Yes, I know, quite shocking, I understand. But you guys gotta understand, the Metroid games really just didn't grab me like they did for its original fan base. The thought of playing as an isolated woman going on an adventure in a barren and hostile environment with only the atmosphere to take in with musical cues just didn't seem appealing to me.
I don't know, maybe just for some reason, Tomb Raider probably had something to offer that Samus didn't. Anyway, as time went on, even I started to wonder whether or not Samus would be getting a new game anytime soon. And sadly, another great character, Star Fox, was kinda suffering the same fate, being in a long, drawn-out hiatus that felt like a freaking eternity. But, as history shows, eventually, he did get another outing. So, there was hope.
And then it happened. Nintendo made the big announcement that not one, but two Metroid games were being developed. Metroid Samus Returns for the Nintendo 3DS, and the coming soon Metroid Prime 4 for the Nintendo Switch. My friends, that is how you generate hype.
Well, not too many months later, Metroid Samus Returns finally came out for the Nintendo 3DS. And from what I was made aware of, this game is actually a remake of the original Metroid Return of Samus that was featured on Game Boy, which in and of itself was the first true sequel to the classic Metroid game on the Nintendo Entertainment System, with Super Metroid being the follow-up third game. If you guys are new to the Brotherhood of Gaming.com and our YouTube channel, then I welcome you guys, and I hope you guys stick around for any new content that we upload. Meanwhile, join me as I explore Metroid Samus Returns.
So, what's the story here? Samus, the lone space bounty hunter, eradicated the space pirates and destroyed Mother Brain, whom was using Metroids to do, well, evil. For a while, this kinda brought out peace, but the Galactic Federation unanimously believed that all Metroids were deemed too big a threat to the galaxy, and they should all be exterminated. After having sent a Federation group down to do the job, apparently went down fast, as these guys were quickly disposed of. The Federation then recruits Samus Aran to go down and see what happened, as well as finish the job. No doubt, since she's already proven herself before and has tangled with Metroids in the past. Samus agrees to follow through with the contract and heads to planet SR388 to do just that. And from there, it's nothing but the player and Samus to experience whatever comes forward. Complete isolation with nothing but you and the mission. And as far as story goes, that's pretty much it. There's no dialogue beyond the introduction, and any further cutscenes are all about showing with little telling, allowing the player to see what's going on firsthand and draw their own conclusion as well as take in the ambiance. During the course of the adventure, Samus comes across many variations of Metroids having evolved into stronger creatures, and even technological hazards that do everything they can to kill her. Upon defeating all who oppose her, Samus eventually gets so deep into the planet that Metroids start to become abundant. Upon defeating the biggest hybrid, Samus begins to make her retreat, when all of a sudden she comes across a newly born baby Metroid. Hesitant on destroying it, she notices that unlike everything else in this game, this particular newborn doesn't attack her, but has instead likely imprinted upon Samus as being the alien's probable mother. Samus in silence contemplates the nature of this creature and what to do with it. Being merciful, she decides to accept the Metroid and take it along with her with the hopes that science just may be able to study it and learn more about the species. after returning to the surface, just inches away from her ship, a familiar foe immediately shows up to raise hell. Ridley engages a confrontation with Samus, but for some unknown reason is more interested in capturing her new friend. Samus once again shows Ridley why she's the best bounty hunter in town, but naturally, Ridley does not make it too easy on her and pushes her to the point of exhaustion. Thankfully, our new Metroid friend levels the playing field, forcing Ridley to make a hasty retreat. Samus and the newborn escape the planet, and the mission is accomplished. Like many Metroid games before it, when you arrive on the planet, or wherever you'll find yourself, the caves you start entering will lead you to some incredible labyrinths to explore, which will no doubt take most of your time as you try aimlessly for the most part to figure out where you can and can't go, and when to go there, and or if you can go there based on what equipment Samus currently has. Along the way, Samus no doubt is going to come across loads of trouble with the local wildlife, and my god, I am not a Metroid expert, but never before have I played a Metroid game where the enemies were as bloodthirsty as this crowd. From the beginning of the game to the end, all the enemies you encounter have this rush move that they will immediately try to nail you with, and deal plenty of damage if doing so. However, Samus has a new ability to give all these guys a good backhand to the jaw if they come within reach, which I gotta admit is actually pretty fun. Successfully timing her fist of fives when an enemy rushes her leaves the foe wide open for return fire, which is honestly the best way to take down most foes in this game, and it is very satisfying when you can do it repeatedly. This, to me, adds a little bit more uniqueness to the game because while most of the time you will wander around looking for progress, it forces the player to stay on their toes, because sometimes these things need only a second to give that shining signal that they are about to strike. One thing I can say that did get tedious after a while is that there is a pretty interesting lack in variety with the enemies. I mean, despite progression, the monsters are for the most part just slight variations on the ones you previously fought already. I mean, they might just pack a stronger punch or have a color swap. Even the Metroid boss encounters have their tedium after a while. Samus needs to use her ice beam and or missiles to damage them, and the best way to do this are basically just using the ice to stun them, wait for them to charge attack, counter, like mentioned earlier, and just go nuts with return fire. Repeat the strategy on everything, and you've essentially mastered the game. Unless, of course, you are just really bad at quick time attacks, in which case this game probably just got that much harder because of it. Trying to fight most things any other way is going to take a lot longer and leave you more vulnerable. And like I said before, guys, these things deliver some serious hurt, so learning how to counter is pretty much a must just to end the fight as quickly as possible. The point of the game is that in each area Samus visits, she has to defeat a certain amount of Metroid hybrids in the area before the game allows her to progress to the next by draining out this purple stuff. The formula from beginning to end is the same every time you enter a new area. You access a new area, scan it with your energy to fill out the map as needed, find this area's new power-up, use said power-up to find and defeat all of the Metroids in the current area the same way you have been doing, go back to the entrance of the area, drain the purple stuff, go down to the next stage, rinse, and repeat. Save for a few surprise encounters with some nifty bosses that actually do force you to think on your feet, this adventure is probably one of the most linear Metroidvania style games out there. The fact that I was able to complete it in such a short amount of time while also having had gone out of my way to collect a lot of hidden secrets kinda serves as a testament to that. This being my first Metroid game finished to completion. Do not get me wrong though, guys, this game is not quite smooth sailing. I'd say it's actually pretty hard sometimes. Some of the puzzles do require you to have some quick timing on your fingers to toggle through various abilities to trigger at precise moments, such as having to use the time slowing ability in conjunction with the morph ball, or having to use this green shield to protect Samus from poisonous plants while racing through them to try to conserve your energy meter. I gotta tell you guys, Samus must go through some serious stuff. Sorry, trying to stay advertiser friendly here. A lot of the challenges in this game are pretty damn fatal, and the bosses after a point are no exception. It takes quite a bit of trial and error sometimes to figure out what it is you're supposed to do, and under situations where timing is the difference between life and death, and hell yes, it gets annoying. Thankfully, there is a merciful checkpoint system that does tend to work well most of the time. From what little experience I've had with Metroids in the past, from my recollection, if you died, it was load your last save, or game over. So thankfully, while this game can be absurdly difficult, based on the enemies alone, the game is at least merciful in that regard. And honestly, I think that was the way to go. You see, when I said the game is linear, it really is. Like, for example, whatever item you need for the current area Samus is in, that item will be in that area. You never at any time need to backtrack to previous stages with a new item to get something to help you progress further. While that's not to say you can't go back and explore with the new items you've obtained to get more things like missiles or power-ups, nothing story-based will require you to do that kind of in-depth searching beyond where the story ends up taking you. It's just a matter of using what you have to traverse the new landscape until you find what you need. And on another note, this in of itself is kind of interesting because also at no point do any of the items or weapons you get become irrelevant. From the start of the journey to the end, all of the special items you get equipped with will come in handy at certain intervals, and even during some boss fights, surprisingly. Sadly, for me, this is kind of a double-edged sword, because like many of you probably understand, it's possible that you could have so many items and weapons in your arsenal that in the heat of battle or on a puzzle, you can easily forget about some of the stuff that you have as options. So whenever you guys do get stumped on a puzzle or a boss that seems too ridiculous, you might want to take a long look at your equipment. Odds are you probably overlooked something. The special abilities Samus obtains over time are useful to be sure, but some of them are a little too situational. The Gatling gun that Samus can get, for example, I almost found no way to efficiently use because it drains your energy meter at a frightening pace, and it seldom if ever got the job done when fighting a Metroid variation I thought it would be useful on. I basically ended up relegating the Gatling gun to only be used on doors and plants that I needed to use it on, and or certain enemies that I felt too lazy to counter with a melee attack. The green shield I mentioned earlier is almost the same a little bit. It is helpful for defense, sure, but after a while that energy meter is going to drain, so I think it's best to save it for when you really need it, and you will. There's no way to bypass the obstacles it's used for without it. Trust me, I tried. Tanking damage in this game should not be an option. I cannot stress how fast your health bar will drain in this game. Other than this, most from what you should expect from a classic Metroid game is mostly present. The wall jump is back, although not nearly as useful as it used to be in Super Metroid because most of the walls have this slippery yellow goo on them preventing you from traversing them, period. Which means, sorry guys, no out of order item hunting, which to some veterans is probably going to be a letdown. And it sure as hell was annoying whenever I saw it because that just meant my options for exploration just got that much more limited. But at the end of the day, what made Metroid fun in the first place is here and should be enjoyable to its fan base who have been looking for a new adventure. Now, can I recommend this game to a new player who's never touched a Metroid game? Absolutely. I was not an avid Metroid player or fan growing up, but I was more than confident in my gaming skills to be able to jump in and give it a shot. And while, yeah, it sure is probably one of the hardest games in the series due to how much the enemies pack a punch, the player has great control over Samus. You can aim in every direction possible, and over the course of the adventure, you will find better equipment to stay alive and dish out more pain. The adventure as a whole is pretty lengthy, especially if you're not sure where to go next, but because of its more linear approach, newer players should have a more comfortable time exploring the caves while having a decent time trying to learn to parry and fight off the enemies and experimenting with Samus's abilities. It's only post-game that the player can truly go back and find all the secrets, so there's no reason to sweat about missing stuff on the way through it. You are going to miss them. Also, sadly, I cannot really mention the amiibo that were available to go akin to this game, mostly because my 3DS didn't have the ability to use the amiibo, and on their own, the amiibo are pretty expensive online. Stupidly expensive. Yeah, go Google it. It's a shame, isn't it? So, sorry, no amiibo footage here. I feel like Nintendo did a great job delivering a new entry in the adventures of Samus, and am surprisingly awaiting to see what to expect in Metroid Prime 4. If any of you guys would like to hear more of my thoughts on these Metroid games, please feel free to let me know in the comments or on our Discord server. Or hell, Twitter for that matter. I'm actually more excited to try them out now. I can definitely recommend Metroid Samus Returns to anyone. Lastly, before I end this review, I want to send a big shout out and a huge thank you to Beard Bear for allowing me to use his walkthrough footage of this game, as sadly I still have no 3DS capture device and no solid way to record the footage on my own without putting my camera up to the 3DS screen and playing it, and I will be damned if I'm going to do that again. Be sure to go check his channel out. He has a lot of great walkthroughs to check out if you need a crash course in where to go.
Well, there you guys have it. Now, I know I'm not the most qualified Metroid player out there to give you the kind of insight that you're probably looking for, but as a new player, I only promise to give you my own personal unique perspective on it. And, as of now, I can definitely say that I am a fan of Metroid, and definitely am looking forward to playing the original games to see what they had to offer.
Did you just say that you never played any of the classic Metroid games? And you call yourself a Nintendo fan? I'm disgusted with you. Now get your ass over there and sit down and educate yourself.
Well, I knew this would be coming. I'm your host, William Morris. I'll see you next time on the Brotherhood of Gaming. Right now, I'm all washed up.